proof of the pudding is in the eating, and I bet that you want to see what Triggre can do, how it works. So prepare a demo in which we will build an application that you can really use from scratch in only 30 minutes. Here's what we want to build. So I wanted to build something that everyone can easily understand, because some of these cases are, are pretty domain specific. So after some brainstorming, we came up with the idea to build a reservation system for an imaginary small company. Now you can make a reservation system for anything from meeting rooms to beamers to work spots. But in this example, we will make a car reservation application. So imagine that we are a 10-person company and we have 3 cars available. This often means that our colleagues cannot use the car when they need to, and currently there's no way to check whether the car is available to make a reservation, other than looking in the parking lot, but not from home, for example, the day before. So the solution is a simple car reservation system where employees can reserve a car for a specific day. And the steps that we'll take to make this application are that we will first build the inventory management, so the cars, and then we will make the reservation feature on top of that. So in 2 steps. Take a quick look at the application that we are going to build. So it should be visible now. If you can let me know if you can see this application. It says Triggre in the top, the black bar, and then car overview. If you can let me know in the chat, because sometimes I manage to only share a specific window, but it should share the entire screen. So if you can see this, please let me know in the chat. That would be helpful. I'm going to assume, yes. Okay, cool. Thanks. Basically what we'll build is we'll have a list of cars. We have an i3, some Multipla, some other cars, and we can add, edit, and remove cars. We can make a reservation for a certain date. This is sort of the thing that we're going to build, right? So I can say reservation, load the cars. I want to reserve this one. Here we go. Boom, says successfully reserved. This is what we're going to build in half an hour. So we're going to go back and I'll show you. This is the Triggre designer. This is where you actually, sorry, I have to skip this one, otherwise I don't see my notes. So this is where you actually build your application. There's a lot here if you have a Triggre designer to learn. But what we're going to do is we're going to build that application from scratch. So I've unloaded anything in here. So we have a empty design. Now, a design consists of data, which is the data that you can save in your application. So you tell Triggre, this is the thing that I want to be able to store in my application. For example, in this case, a car and a reservation. It can also be like a product or other things like, let's see, an order or other things that you are storing as data in your application that are relevant for your processes. Flow parts are little processes that we can reuse. So they use data, they look it up, they store it. We then have automation flows, which are automatic processes that run in the background. So they don't require any user intervention. So for example, if every day at 10 o'clock you want to run a process, that would be an automation flow. User flows then are the motor of an application. It's basically a combination of user interface and workflow. So what it does is it shows you a graphical representation of how a user navigates your application, which page they see, and then which process is executed when they click on buttons and stuff. So we'll dive into that as well. And in appearance, we will manage the menu structure. But for this application, we're going to start with data. And we're going to tell the application which data that we want to store. And as you can see, we already have user, so users can already be stored. This is a built-in data item that I have, and a user has an email address. They can be blocked if they're not allowed to log in, and they have a name. So we're going to add a new data item by clicking the plus here, and we're going to call this one car because we want to be able to store cars in our system. Car. And we're going to make sure that car has some properties. Let's say that we want to give the car a name. Just because it's funny. We want to also say that it maybe has a license plate. And we want to have a picture of the car. So every time that you see me clicking, you see that Triggre shows you this little dialogue that will just guide you through, right? This is really one of the main things and how it works. So we're going to say files, we're going to say picture, and we'll add a picture. We're going to go photo or something. Okay, so now we have the ability to store a car with a license plate, a name, and a photo. And the next thing that we want to do is build the actual management of this data. So we're going to go into user flows. And you can see that we don't have any of them. So we're going to start here, add one, and we're going to use the wizard because there's a nice wizard here that we can use. So we're going to use this overview, add, edit, and delete data wizard that will allow us to create really quickly a simple flow to manage those cars. So here it says, for which flow do you want it to be created? Well, for car, because we want to manage our cars. And yeah, we want all the fields there. And we want to be able to add a new car, edit a car, and remove a car, just in case. Okay, we can order the things a little bit. Let's put the name at the top. And we want to sort by name in ascending order. So basically alphabetical order. There we go. Let's say name. Let's go with all cars, right? So done. And Triggre is now going to create that entire user flow for us. So it's just an item here in the list, but if we open this, we'll see what happens. So Triggre has this flow basically means how a user navigates it. So they start here, and you can see that they first start by going to this car overview page. From there, they can click an add button, which will bring them to this add car page. And there, if they click done, a car is created and they return to the car overview, where then the car will obviously be shown. And the same goes for edit. So edit is they select the car, they click edit, they edit the car. If they click done, the car is updated, and then they go back. And delete is just you select the car, you delete, and it's gone. This is how you can read these things and how quickly Triggre can build these kinds of functionalities. The only thing we have to do is add this to our menu so people can actually use it. Now our complete menu is empty, so we're going to click the plus again. And we're going to add here a little section. And let's see, what are we going to call this? Let's say mobility or something. Mobility, and we'll add a submenu called cars or something. Fleet, that's actually nicer. Fleet. And then we'll add our all cars user flow that we just made so we can use it in the application. Add that, and that is all it is. So we've now put it in the menu. We're going to go back here to our dashboard, and our design is done. So we're going to click publish. Publish. Now, I have a lot of environments here that I can publish to, but normally if you have a starter account, you have at least a lab. If you have a commercial account, you have main, and I have a lot of demos because I give a lot of demos. I'm going to publish it here to demo 1. So here we go. Now, the interesting part about the publishing is that right now what happens is Triggre takes a design that we've just made, and it really builds software. So if you know a little bit about the technology, so there's a database in the backend. In our case, it's a Microsoft SQL database. Triggre actually programs the entire database for you, right? So it creates all the things in the database, make sure that you can find things in there. It also creates a lot of code. It actually writes code just like a programmer would, except it does it a little bit faster. And so it writes code, and then from that, it will create a application, which is called compiling. So it creates an application, and then takes that application and installs it in our cloud on a server. So security-wise, they're all different instances. So you're really secure. You have your own part of that. Your application runs in a specific part with its own database, with its own processes, completely catered to your idea. So that's all going on, and it takes only like 30 seconds to a minute. It depends a little bit on how big your design is. If you have a bigger design, it takes maybe a little bit longer, like maybe 2 minutes. But this is all that's going on. So it takes the design that you've just made graphically, it builds actual code, it writes actual code, then compiles that into an application, and then publishes that onto the web server. So it's done that now, and we can go back to our dashboard. And just as a handy link, you can go here and you have your lab and main and your demo 1, and you can see here, go to demo 1. And if I click that, it will open a new tab and it will load the application. And on the first load, it might take a second. That has to do with the web server where it's just installed. So we'll take a second to show, and then we'll have our application ready to go. So here we go. As you can see, we now have the all cars with nothing, because we haven't added a car yet. So let's start adding a car. So you can see we have that add button that we just talked about in the user flow. Remember that? We click that and we'll see a little form that says name. I don't know what's going to be there. Name is going to be horsepower powered. License plate is, I don't know, 1HRS E, something like that. And we'll have a file. I actually have some prepared here. Where is it? Here. This one in. So as you can see, I'll click done, and it will upload the picture and put it in here. See, we have a car. I'm going to add another one. This is space wagon. Oh, my God, my typing skills today are not on. To space. And I'll have a space wagon in there. Lovely car. And the last one that we want to add is the electric, and it's three. There we go. And it's an electric car that we put in there. There we go. Electric car. It's a bigger picture, so it takes a bit to upload. As you can see, it's like over a meg. There we go. Boom, it's there. So this is how we can add them. But what if I made a little mistake, right? I might want to edit a car because this, oh, I got their license plate wrong. It's actually different. So I'll edit it. Just like we saw on the user flow, and I'll say, oh, sorry, it was actually like that. There we go, click done, and you can see it's updated immediately. So this is how quickly you can make an actual management system for a little data that you can do. But now, obviously, we need to make sure that we can actually make reservations. That's our next step. So we're going to go back into this tab, into our designer, right? So back into the design area, and we're going to make reservations. So we're going to start again by going to data. And this time we're going to add a reservation. Click the plus here, add a data item called reservation, because we want to store a reservation in our system. Add, cool. Add. Now, what properties does a reservation have? Now, one thing is that it has a date, right? So we're going to go dates and times, and we're going to say a date for which the car is reserved. This is reservation date or something. Then we want to reserve a car, and that is done by a reference to another data item. So we're going to go next, and then we can select what we want to use. It's a car in this case, and it will say, okay, what do you want to call it? We'll just call it car. Really simple name. And then Triggre goes like, okay, so we have a reservation and we have a car, but how do these two relate, right? Well, let's answer these questions. Reservation can have one or more than one car. Well, a single reservation can only have one car, right? You can only make a reservation for one car. That's how I want to design it anyway. But a single car can have more reservations because a car can be reserved for today and for tomorrow and for next week. So we want to have more than one reservation there. We click next. And then a property will also be created for cars. So how will we want to call that property? Well, let's call it reservations. There we go. And now you see this little line appear, and it says here that there's a car in reservation. It goes to car. And then if we look here, we see that the reservations and reservation list, so the list of reservation can be multiple, also be 0 reservations, is a link to car. So that's how that works. And then we obviously need to know who reserved it. So let's go in here, make that a reference, the user, and we'll call this reserve by. There we go. Next, same thing applies. Reservation, one user, because one person can reserve a car. And if we look the other way, we say, well, a single user can have more than one reservation, right? So there we go. And we also call this reservations because that way user also has one or more reservations, or 0 or more actually reservations. Same thing happens for reserved by as a user. We see a little line here going to user, and here we see a reservations list that links the reservations to the user. So that's how simple we can do that. Now, we need to now do some plumbing because we want to have a little process that gets us the available cars for a specific date. This is what we're first going to build. So we're going to go into flow parts, which is still empty, except for all the built-in ones. So these are ones that I can't edit, and these are made by Triggre. Triggre creates these when you add data items. It will make sure that you can create one, delete one, you can update the car. So you see those and some other things. We're going to make one that is custom. So we're going to add here a new flow part. I'm going to rename it for now. And we're going to make this get available cars. So this is what we want it to do. Rename this. And in this process, what you'll see is you will see that you have inputs. So we go into the plus and then we say inputs, and we're adding an input, right? So we add an input. And in this case, we want a date. So we want, as an input for our little process, we want to have a date, because for that date, we want to get all of the available cars. One date, there we go. And the input name is going to call, I'm just going to call it date, just date, that's it. Okay, so now we have an input, and the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to add an action. And this action is going to be a data lookup, right? So this is a process that looks up data that we have stored in our application. We're going to use that. We're going to say we're going to look up a reservation. There we go. And then we can add a rule to sort of filter the data that we're looking for. Well, we want reservations for the date that we've supplied. So we're going to add this rule. We're going to say, you know what? That reservation has properties that we just made. And one of them is a reservation date. We just made that in the data. So we're going to say that one has to be equal, right? Equal to, and now we can use our input. So it's a property in the flow part that we're designing. Say inputs, date. So that's that date that we made as an input. Next. So now it says we want only those reservations for which the reservation date is the date that we put in. Okay. Next, we have a list of reservations. Call this reservations date, something like that. Okay, there we go. So now we have a list of reservations. The next step is that we're going to look up all the cars. So we again add a decision. We're going to do another lookup, right? Data lookup. There we go. Car. And this time, since we just want all the cars in our system, we don't need a rule. So we're just going to skip this. And we say a list of cars. We're going to call this all cars. There we go. Done. Second action is there. And the reason that we need this is because we don't want the reservations on this date. We actually want those that are not available. Now there's a little trick, and we're going to do a little calculation here that you can easily learn by doing our academy. And this trick is that we're going to do a calculation. And calculations can be anything. It can be text or numbers, 1 + 2. But we can also work with lists in here. The thing that we're going to do is we're going to do this function here. That's a function that we're going to add. This function, it's all the way down here. There's a lot of here, but for lists, one that I want is I want to say remove something from another list. It's very powerful. And what we want to do is we want to remove those reservations all have the cars, right? So the cars that are reserved for this date, right? We want to remove them from all cars, because that way we get the cars that are available. See, so what we do, we remove the cars that are reserved for the date that we want to get the cars that are available from all the cars, which leaves us with the cars that are available. So it's a little process, completely custom. So we're going to say this is available cars. There we go. And our process is done. So we're going to say end the flow part. There we go. We're going to output, and we're going to say as an output, we're going to select the available cars. So now we have a little process, right? That given a date, that will find us in 3 steps the available cars on that date. That's how simple it works. Okay, here we go. Go back and we're going to go into our user flows again. And here we are going to make a new one, but this time we're going to make it from scratch, empty. Here we go. Let's start here, and we're going to start with a page. So we're going to want to make a reservation. So we're going to start with a page. Call it reservation. And now if I exit, what you'll see is that this turns red. Now this is an interesting thing that I want to quickly show you is, let's say that I am, let's rename this to, maybe reservation or something. Let's say that I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm done, I'm going to publish, right? So you can see this, I'll go to publish, and I'm just going to be like, you know what, that thing, it looks like it's not done, but I don't care. I'm just going to publish anyway. I'll click here and it will say, hey, something is not exactly right. You've not completed something, or you've removed something that I cannot make software from this, right? So Triggre will save you from making a technical error in this case. And then the next question obviously is, well, where is this thing that I need to fix? Well, you just click design because there's a 1 here, right? It says there's one little thing that you have that is wrong. So you click it and then you see, oh, it must be in user flows. I'll click that. Well, it probably is here. I don't know. And then you see, oh, well, maybe it's here. I'll click this. It says, hey, you know what? You forgot to add something. You can just click this, the red thing, say, hey, we need to add some content. Cool, let's do that. In this case, we're going to go for some stacked content, and we're going to add a form field to our page, right? Because we're making that reservation page where you want to add a reservation. So one form field is going to be a date, because we want the user to enter the reservation date. I'm going to call that reservation date. Go next. Required. We want to refill it. It's nice if it has today's date, so we're going to just fill it with today's date. See, date. There we go. No validation rules needed. And there we go. We have our reservation date there. Okay, that's all we need for this page. I'm going to continue with our process. So we're going to add another step, and that is a button that says, you know what, next. We're going to submit our date. So we're going to say submit the form fields. Yes. We don't have an additional rule. You can make like very complex business rules on buttons for when they are visible or not. So for example, if the reservation can only be made during certain hours, you can make a business rule for that, right? Or if you already have a reservation, you're not allowed to make another one. Stuff like that, you can all put in there. But what we're going to do is we're going to add our flow part that we just made. We're going to add a process to the user flow, and it is the get available cars, right? We just made that one. We're going to add the process here. And this says, hey, it has these inputs. Do you want to maybe fill them? Well, we do, because date, we want to have a date from the user flow. So in this user flow, we have a page called reservation. We just made it. And on that page, we have a reservation date. And that's the one that we want to give to our process to get the available cars for that date, because that's what we just built. We're going to enter that. Once it's done, and Triggre will add here the get available cars process. Now, after this, what we'll do is after we get the available cars, we're going to add another page, but it might be nice. Maybe there's no cars available, you know? So we're going to make a nice decision here. Decision. Because let's say that in the value that we just have to get available cars, what if there's no cars available? So let's say available cars is not equal to empty. So let's say there are cars, right? So if it's not empty, there are cars available. So we say cars available, done, add this thing. And what if that is untrue? So let's say that it's false, right? So there are no cars. We'll add a page. It says a friendly little reminder to the user. We'll call this no cars available. Add a page, and we'll edit it again. A little texty. There we go. Stack text, just like we did before. But now we do text and say, sorry, oops, sorry, there are no more cars available on, and we want to show the date. So we do insert value placeholder. We say on that reservation page, you enter the date. We're going to use that. Boom, on that date, there are no more cars available. Done. That's what we see if there are no cars available. But that's not the most interesting part. The part that's most interesting, obviously, is if there are cars available for us. So if it's true and there are cars available, we're going to add a little process. There's going to be a page. We're going to add a page because now you have to select which car you want. So select a car. Okay, there we go. And on this page, we want to actually show a list of cars. So we're going to add here as a whole block. So it contains, it basically covers the entire page. We're going to use a table to show them. That's easiest for us. Data from the user flow. You can get data directly from the database that's created from the data, but we actually got our little process that found us the available cars. And that's the ones that we want to show. We're going to say data from the user flow. And you will see here that you have the process get available cars that's in our user flow. And you can expand it and it says available cars. Nice. That's what we want to show. What do we want to show from available cars? Well, let's say the license plate, the name, and a picture. So everything. Next, and then it says, you know, do you want to change anything? I think it's fine. Let's say the name like that. Let's have a clickable preview as a photo, so you can like take a closer look, search on everything. That's fine. Sort order, let's put it on name and then smallest to largest. There we go. And we don't need to download. Okay, done. So now we have a table on our page that shows the cars that you can select to reserve. But then we need to make a reservation, right? We're going to go into add mode again here, and we're going to add the next step, and that is reserve car. Something like that. Okay, here we go. And we say it applies to an item selected in the table. So when you select an item, this button is available. So that's what we want. I'm going to click next because you select a car, right? No additional rule. Don't need to do that. I'm going to add a new page or flow part in this case. Make another flow part. Here we go. To make a reservation. Now, this is one of those built-in ones that we've gotten automatically from making the data. So create reservation is automatically available for us. We're going to use that. It says, hey, a reservation has a car, right? Well, on the select a car page, we have the selected car. Cool. Let's use that one. You can see the Triggre only shows you things that you can actually select for that. So it's not like you can make an error here. It shows you, it filters the information that you can use to make it easier for you to select the things. So let's also do the reservation date. We'll say, let's say date from the user flow. And it says, hey, on the reservation page, right, you have that reservation date. So let's do that one. And then reserved by the user that makes this reservation. Well, Triggre has this thing called the current user, which is always available. Super handy. So the current user is going to make this reservation. There we go. Done. And a reservation will be made. And the only thing that we'll now have to do is add a nice page for the user to see that his reservation has succeeded. So reservation completed or something like that. Completed. There we go. And we'll add something on there. There we go. Again, a little text message that says, nice. You have reserved. And then we're going to show the selected car, right? Because it's the one that we reserved. And then the name of that car. I'm going to show that in quotes. Or, and then we're going to dates that we've reserved just to make it nice. So the reservation date from that reservation page still available to us. That's it. Now we have a little message that shows, nice, you've reserved that car for the reservation date. Cool. Now, remember that we have to add this one to our menu. So we're going to go to appearance, add this, and we're going to add it to something like reservation or something. Go, reservations, and we'll add make a reservation. Boom, done. We're going to go back like we did before, go to publish, and click demo one. Now, remember that we already added some cars to our system, right? So we're actually now publishing to that same environment. So what's going to happen? Well, Triggre now actually upgrades your application and your data, so it's still compatible. So all the cars will now have a list of reservations available if they are there, but the cars still remain intact. So the data that we still have is still going to be there. Triggre doesn't delete it, doesn't do anything. It just makes sure that it migrates the data from what it is now to that new design that we've just created. So apart from writing code to create the application, Triggre also writes migration code to make sure that your current data still stays intact. Obviously, unless you've removed something from your design, it will remove it. But this is how it works. So what you'll see is when we go to the application is that there will still be the list of cars, but now we'll get an extra menu item that says, hey, make a reservation, right? Because that's what we designed. So again, Triggre creates from that design, it actually builds code, actually builds a database, make sure that it all works together, installs this on the web server. But in this case, since we're making a change, it also migrates your data, migrates your entire application so that you can still use it with the existing data, which is really important. You don't want to be like, okay, I have to back up my data, I have to put it back in. No, it's just all automatically there. So publishing is done. We're going to go back to our dashboard and we're going to, again, click that link because it will open a new tab. Where is it? Demo one, right? So we're going to go to demo one. Here we go. Again, just because we just published, it takes a second extra to load it the first time, which gives me the time to take a sip of water. Okay, so here we are. You can see that all cars, our cars are still there. The three wee, the horsey, the space wagon, everything is still there, but we now have to make a reservation page. So let's see what we built. Make a reservation. Automatically fills in today's date, the 28th of October. Okay, let's click next, the button that we created. These are the available cars. And currently, everything is still available. So I want to have the electric car, say reserve car. It says, nice, you have reserved electric for 28/10/2021. Cool. Reserve another one, because now electric should not be available anymore. We click next. Hey, it's gone. Cool. I also want to reserve space. Here we go. That one. And I'm also going to reserve the last one, right? So I want all three. I need three cars. I don't know why, but I need three cars. Here we go. I've also got horsepower. Now, if I now make a reservation for today, there's no cars available anymore, right? So remember that we made that decision and it should sort of get us to that other page. Well, that should happen now. So let's see if that works. Does. Nice. Sorry, no more cars available on 28th of October. So that is how quickly you can build an actual useful application, right? This is just a little small idea of how you can do that. But basically, you can do a lot more expansive things. So this is just a quick demo, right? It's just scratching the surface. And people often ask us, can Triggre also handle complex processes? Because it looks so simple, and then they think that Triggre cannot handle any complexity, but it can. And this is a process that is taken from one of the templates that we have for. This is actually from an actual customer application that has an air freight calculator. So this calculates cost for air. They also have one for other transportation mechanisms, but what it does, you can see it's a fairly complex process. It takes into account the US dollar to euro conversion rates and stuff to check whether, whether the US dollar version or the euro is cheaper for them. Some of their suppliers use euros, some use dollars. All this is calculated in this process. We also sometimes get the question, can Triggre connect to other systems? Well, of course it can, and in several ways. The most used one by people is Zapier. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with Zapier, but it's a platform you can use to connect Triggre to thousands of other applications. and it actually does not require you to know code. So it's why it's very, I would say it's a very good addition together with Triggre. It's a nice symbiotic platform to use. And maybe you're wondering whether you also have to start from scratch, right? Well, of course not. We have a huge library of application templates with cute names like very back office, Albert approval, SUE support that cover a wide variety of use cases. And you can use these to quickly get a head start on your next application. You can find them on our website very easily. And there's actually a template finder that you can use to find out which one is actually good for your case.